Greetings and salutations. Welcome to another episode of 365 Days of Gaming. Appreciate you taking time to check out this video. Like, comment, share, subscribe. You know the drill. Thank you again. We are at the last episode. And to do that, I had to pick a game that, had a amazing, great impact on me at some point. And if you know me, you probably will figure out what the game is. But for those that don't, this is Pokemon Gold. Now, there's a specific reason I picked this game because when I was a kid, gaming was not the coolest thing. And I understood that at a very early age, but I also realized that I didn't care and I really was just going to keep doing this thing that, was not the coolest thing to do. Now, there was a time where everybody played video games, but then towards the late 90s, that kind of separated themselves into the people who just kind of played it sometimes, which was cool, and then people like me who this is what we did most of the time. And Pokemon Gold was one of those games where, one, it was just an amazing game. It was a sequel to Red and Blue, so many different improvements on it. I had a Game Boy, Super Game Boy at the time, so I got to play it and, see it in color because I was going from a Game Boy Pocket. And this was like, just a really cool game. But the other reason and why it's so memorable for me is I met a lot of my long-term friends with this game. So my aunt was a librarian at the school, and I used to go into her computer room, and that's where I would play games and kind of just, have me a nice place. And me and my friend Marquise, I had just moved back, so me and him were, hanging out and stuff, and both of us are playing Pokemon. And we go in there and we see, a couple of other kids with some Game Boys, and we put two and two together. So we like, yo, what y'all playing? And they're like, Pokemon. This ends up being my friends Ronnie and Steven. And that was kind of the formation of our little group. We were the game kids, the game heads, the video game nerds, whatever you wanted to call us. But we were all brought together by this game, and we would sit there and play and, trade Pokemon. And, one of the things was we never really battled. And I think it's because nobody wanted to lose, but it was all just, kind of going from Pokemon into all these other games, what y'all play and all of that stuff. And all of a sudden we had this, little squad of gamers, and it was really cool. And, these are friends I have to this day, and we've watched each other go through all of these different changes and become all these different people. And it's been really fun. And it's kind of in part to Pokemon Gold. Another thing about Pokemon Gold for me was I started a new game on this game like a dozen times. Like I remember me and my cousin Jonathan going into summer camp, and he had silver and I had gold, and we would just start a new game and run through it. And it was just like, I did that like 3 summers, and it was always fun. And it was this cool thing to kind of do, like this little tradition. Cause I never cared about like, having a copy of the game with all the Pokemon. That was never really my thing. It was about getting my team. And this game, and building on what the first game did, you have all of these Pokemon that are being added into the game, like 100 Pokemon got added. And then when you beat the new gym leaders, the new 8 gym leaders, and go through the Elite Four, it opens up the entire map from the first game. And it was like, that was the craziest thing that we had ever seen, for us in our little world with the game, to give you 2 games in one. Because now you get to go through their gym leader challenge, which is all familiar because you've played the first game, right? Or at least more than likely you have. And then you get to go back through the Elite Four, and it's like everything's leveled up. And it was just like a, oh my God moment. And all of the little quality of life improvements they added to Gold were so cool, like the experience bar. If you got Crystal, they did little animations when they first came out, which was, another really cool thing. Presentation level was just going up. The new Pokemon were so cool. Like, usually there's kind of at least for me, I'm kind of apprehensive when something adds on to something I'm already familiar with. But with Pokemon, especially in those early days, it felt like every time they released new Pokemon, they all fit in so perfectly. And it was like the second set had some of my favorite Pokemon of all time. Like, I'm a big Ampharos fan, and that was introduced in Gold. And I could still get all of my favorites. So I could still get Dragonite, I could still get Electabuzz and those different Pokemon. Like, that was like this whole new world, but it was also the thing that you already knew and enjoyed. So I don't know how many hours I put into this game. I don't know how many times I went from, you know, picking up Cyndaquil, which I did every single time because there was no reason to pick anybody else. And then just going through and, you know, trying to pick different Pokemon and having these different teams. And, you know, my friends, they would pick all these other Pokemon that I hadn't thought about playing and have their own little teams. And it was just like, you know, like I said, this own little world that kind of started with Pokemon Gold. So ending this series, I knew I had to pick a game that had a really, really big impact on me, but also it's just a really, 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 really good game. Like, yeah, it's aged obviously, but going back to it, I felt really, really at home, and it was like, you know, going to a happy place, and it was all familiar, but it's also wasn't as dated as I thought it would feel. So I was really happy about that. You know, I pretty much felt like I need to go through and do another run through. But if you have enjoyed the series, or if this is your first time watching, I appreciate it. Love to hear your feedback. This has been, you know, one of the most fun things I've ever done, but also one of the most time consuming. So I look forward to whatever else we do. And one last time, I appreciate you letting me reminisce with you. Y'all have fun. Y'all be safe. Peace.